number 10, first Americans. 2021 brought us a lot of new discoveries. The study of ancient humans gained more information with the discoveries made last year. One of the bizarre finds from last year include footprints that are believed to have belonged to some of the first people to set foot in America. These footprints were discovered in muddy earth at the edge of a wetland in New Mexico and were very well preserved. After some research was done, it was found that these footprints were made somewhere between 21,000 and 23,000 years ago, which greatly pushes back the timeline of when humans came to the Americas, the last continent to be settled by humans. Up until this point, it was believed that the first humans arrived in the Americas around 13,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. These footprints, which are believed to have been made by children, have scientists thinking that these humans migrated to the area during a time where sheets of ice blocked the passage to North America, indicating that they were there much earlier than previously thought. At number 9, Dragon Man. Now, even though the name might not suggest it, no, this is not a half-man, half-dragon, but it's still a strange discovery. This past summer, scientists discovered the skull of this new human species that they've named Homo longi, longi being the Chinese name for dragon, and dragon being a reference to the location that these remains were found, since they were discovered by the Dragon River region in northeast China. The skull of the Dragon Man dates back 146,000 years, and scientists believe that this new species belongs to another sister group of the Homo sapiens, so they're even more closely related to us than Neanderthals. What stunned researchers the most about this incredible find was the size of this being's skull, because it was pretty big for a hominid from this time. This find opened a new avenue of discoveries for scientists, so that's exciting news for anyone who takes an interest in this sort of thing. I mean, with further research, who knows what we could learn from this find. Before we carry on talking about some more of these strange discoveries, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 7, migration. One of the most fascinating yet complex stories about human evolution is our migration. For many groups of early humans, it was easy to leave Africa and go elsewhere. Early on in our history, ancient humans began to migrate to Europe and Asia because they were all connected by land masses, but the mysterious story behind early humans' migration to the land down under is where things start to get very interesting. It is believed that the first settlers of Australia first came from Southeast Asia. Genetic findings show that the earliest indigenous Australians came from somewhere around Asia. These individuals were the ones who took a leap of faith to cross the water and settle in new land that at the time they never knew existed. Their curiosity took them to a new land. Now, there are many theories as to how humans got to Australia. Since there's always been water separating the continent from the rest of the world, these early humans would have had to build some kind of ancient boat or raft to get across. Scientists have yet to find evidence to support this theory, since due to rising sea levels on the coast of Asian countries as well as Australia, if these ancient boats or rafts were still there, they would either be too far underwater to find or completely degraded. For now, all we have to go off is theories and ideas, so the story of how humans got to these new places remains a mystery. At number 6, cave paintings. I think that out of all the things left behind by our ancient ancestors, cave paintings are some of the most mysterious. So many archaic art pieces have been found by scientists over the years, from statues to ceremonial pieces, but cave paintings are by far the most interesting, at least in my opinion. Much like modern art, it is all up to interpretation, especially since the artists who created these cave masterpieces are long gone. Some of the most mysterious cave paintings are ones that depict some kind of alien life forms. Yes, that's right, I said aliens. Even back in the days of early humans, Homo sapiens have been looking to the stars or even having their own encounters with extraterrestrials. One such depiction of alien life comes from the Wandjina cave paintings. These eerie looking paintings depict these sky beings, as they were called. These beings are depicted with white faces devoid of a mouth, large black eyes, and a head surrounded by a halo or some kind of helmet. According to legend, the Wandjina were sky people or spirits of the sky who descended from the Milky Way and created Earth and all of its inhabitants. The Wandjina realized how big a task their creation was, so they sent for more of their people and spent their time creating, teaching, and being gods to the people of Earth. Eventually, they left, either descending into the water or returning back to the stars. It's a bit of an eerie story and is very mysterious. At number 5, bipedality. As we are more than aware, we are bipedal. Humans walk on 2 legs, and it's been like that for millennia. Now you're probably asking yourself, Bree, what's so mysterious about that? And I will tell you, dear viewer, the thing that is so mysterious about our bipedality is the fact that we have no idea why we evolved this way. There are a lot of theories, but the bottom line is that we don't know why our primate ancestors decided to just up and start walking all of a sudden. There was once a running theory that we became bipedal as a way to adapt to our surroundings. It was thought that because of the changing climate in Africa, the forest that we once inhabited started to dry up, and so we had to adapt to living on the savanna. And to do that, we needed to leave our tree climbing ways behind and start walking. But thanks to new bone evidence from ancient human species, that hypothesis has been rewritten. When Ardipithecus ramidus was discovered, it was noted that her remains showed adaptations for both tree climbing and bipedality. And since Ardipithecus ramidus was believed to have lived in a wooded environment, this just made scientists go back to the drawing board, so to speak, to explain why humans are bipedal. To this day, we just don't know for sure, and it remains a mystery. At number 4, stop evolving. There is a theory in the scientific community that hypothesizes that Homo sapiens have stopped evolving. It is a highly debated theory, but a theory nonetheless. Some experts, including naturalist David Attenborough, believe that our species has just stopped evolving over the years, and it's kind of a mystery. There's a theory that since we are now able to keep even the weakest members of our species alive, we Homo sapiens have stopped evolving physically. Experts believe that we have nothing left in the world to adapt to, and so we physically stop making changes to our body to make it easier to keep going. Instead of changing ourselves to fit the world, we've instead changed the world to fit us. On the other hand, however, there is a theory that rather than having stopped evolving, we started evolving at a much faster rate, and no one has really noticed. Only time will tell which theory is actually correct, but until that time comes, this will remain yet another human mystery. At number 3, punchable faces. Have you ever just wanted to punch somebody in the face? I know, weird question, but it applies here. Another pretty mysterious thing that ancient humans did was evolve punchable faces. Yeah, weird flex, but okay. If you were to punch someone in the face, they would be relatively okay for the most part. I mean, yeah, they might walk away with some bruises and whatnot, but for the most part, they will survive. This is because hominids evolved so that we could take a hit. Well, more specifically males. The male face was designed to be able to take a hit and just walk it off. Based on research done by evolutionary biologists, male facial structures started to firm up over time because they were constantly getting into fights and they needed to be able to adapt to getting hit several times. You have to remember that back in the early days of man, we didn't really have weapons to start with. For a long time, all we had was our fists, and so when someone was threatened, they had to duke it out. Eventually, we evolved to be able to withstand a punch, and that is why Jake Paul is able to get punched so many times and get back up. Unfortunately. At number 2, self-domestication. Another really mysterious thing that ancient humans did was they domesticated themselves. Self-domestication in humans means that over time we evolved towards having more collaborative, docile behavior. To survive in groups, we needed to be able to work together, and over time we evolved so that this was possible. We weeded out that aggression so that we didn't have the innate desire to attack other humans who came into our groups. And though this all sounds nice, this self-domestication also has a dark side that is revealed when you bring up the topic of our darker histories like war, slavery, and mass killings of certain groups. Because we became more docile, we also became ignorant to people who weren't part of our group, which is why later on in history we saw this theme of marginalizing and discriminating. The idea of self-domestication is pretty wild when you think about it, because rather than us become more docile through the influence of an outside force, we somehow had the idea to do that ourselves. Unless the aliens did this, which honestly could be very possible. And finally, at number 1, mass extinction. Now this one might not necessarily be mysterious, but it is concerning, and it paints a picture of where we're headed as humanity continues to manipulate the earth. While humans were evolving in Africa, the rest of the world's creatures were thriving for the most part. In many parts of the world untouched by human influence, there were megafauna. These megafauna were able to live and thrive for thousands of years, at least until Homo sapiens came along and ruined everything. As we started to traverse the globe, creating settlements and beginning the story of humanity, we also in the process killed off most of this megafauna, causing a mass extinction of these creatures. This extinction event, which scientists have called the holocene extinction, is still ongoing. Most of the large mammals who have ever roamed the earth were wiped out around 80,000 years ago and went completely extinct by 10,000 years ago. Some scientists want to blame this on climate change, however in a lot of places the timing of the first human settlements and the extinction of certain animals line up too precisely to completely excuse us from having caused damage to the earth's megafauna. This, plus the fact that this extinction event is ongoing with more and more of earth's creatures going extinct every day, I think this is enough evidence to prove that we are the problem. We have to do better, guys. The earth is dying and it's all our fault. At number 10, Paranthropus robustus. Let's kick things off with the genus of hominin that we didn't get to discuss in our last video. The genus Paranthropus was a group of now extinct hominins known for their robust skulls and distinct jaw shapes. Paranthropus robustus was one of 3 species within this genus and lived between 1.6 and 1.2 million years ago in southern Africa. These hominins were quite short compared to later humans, standing at an average height of 3'9" for males and 3'3" for females, so these guys were pretty short. This species was known for their chewing. Yeah, weird flex, I know, but the standards for excellence were pretty low 1.6 million years ago. Their teeth and jaws were specifically designed for eating tough fibrous foods, and their jaw muscles were very large and strong to make all that happen, hence the name robustus. Other than their impressive eating abilities, not much else has been discovered about this species. No stone tools have been associated with Paranthropus robustus, however it is believed that they did use bones as tools to dig in termite mounds for snack time. At number 9, Paranthropus boisei. Up next we have another species of Paranthropus, Paranthropus boisei. This early hominin came before Paranthropus robustus and lived in eastern Africa between 2.3 and 1.2 million years ago. Much like other classifications of Paranthropus, this species also had a specialized skull for intense chewing. They had very large faces because of their large jaws and temporalis muscles, which are the muscles that you use for chewing. What Paranthropus boisei had that other members of his genus didn't was thick dental enamel. In fact, boisei had the thickest dental enamel of any early human. They also had larger teeth than Paranthropus robustus, and these guys basically just lived to eat. It was their only real skill. Other than their eating habits, we know that Paranthropus boisei also lived mostly in grasslands. Now before we carry on talking about our extinct ancestors and talking about their ancient lineage, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider subscribing to the channel. We've got so many awesome videos for you guys to enjoy and learn from, so come join the Bumblebee family. Moving on to the third species in the Paranthropus genus, we have Paranthropus aethiopicus. Because very few fossils of this species have been discovered, scientists don't really know much about Paranthropus aethiopicus. But we do know that they lived between 2.7 and 2.3 million years ago in eastern Africa. Like the rest of his Paranthropus pals, he was built to eat. The shape and size of this species' teeth suggest that they lived on a mostly vegetarian diet. Since we don't really know much else about this species, I'll instead tell you about what happened to the Paranthropus genus. Well, obviously they all went extinct, but funnily enough, they died off as a result of the very thing that they were designed for. This genus was designed to eat, but eventually they hit an evolutionary dead end, and they all just sort of died off because they were too specialized and couldn't adapt to the new food sources being produced by Africa's changing climate. Paranthropus also shows no direct connection to the family tree that produced Homo sapiens, so when you look at things, Paranthropus kind of just existed on this earth for a hot minute and pretty much accomplished nothing. That's pretty depressing.
Number 7 is an artifact reburied. And yes, it is for disappointing reasons, but we'll get to those in a moment. Called the Kanoko stone, it's carved full of indentations, geometric, spirals, and other mysterious patterns that seem to have no inherent translation or meaning to us in modern times. However, the art form is recognized as a cup and ring carvings from Bronze Era, and the Kanoko stone is considered the finest example to date, dating back over 5,000 years. First discovered in 1887 Scotland, the stone is 42 by 26 feet on farmland. This stone is recognized to be of national importance and a scheduled monument. This is due to the particular carvings of 2 pairs of footprints that only have 4 toes and pre-Christian cross in an oval. Yet, for the last 50 years, it's laid buried several feet of earth and vegetation over top in a sense of desperate attempts to protect it from vandalism. During the 60s, the Kanoko stone was repeatedly damaged by vandals, so in 64, the Glasgow University archaeologists recommended it be buried to protect it. To this day, it remains under the earth. However, there is consideration to unbury it once more and garner the correct security for curious onlookers to finally see it. Eastern Arctic petroglyphs are number 6 in the countdown. The first mystery of these petroglyphs is their location. While they reside on the coast of the Inuit region in Nunavut, they are a highly guarded secret. These 165 plus petroglyphs are protected from the public and have been submitted to UNESCO for the new World Heritage Site consideration. After hearing what happened to number 8, sadly this does make sense. They are highly stylized human faces in rounded, ovular, square, or triangular shapes with horns dotting the heads, all carved on soapstone banks from the Dorset era, and appear to be the only area of Dorset transposed soapstones in a large scale, as they usually only find small bone, horn, ivory artifacts. The Dorset people people lived along the coast of Nunavik for 2,000 to 1,000 years ago and disappeared before the arrival of the Thule Inuit, the ancestors of modern Inuit inhabiting the area approximately 800 years ago. The carvings, which have baffled archaeologists since their discovery in the early 1960s, range from a few centimeters in height to more than 30 centimeters, and scientists have been unable to truly date the carvings. Scientists do speculate that the decline in the Dorset people was triggered by a sudden warming of the climate in the Arctic around the 10th century. The dramatic change precipitated their spiritual beliefs and artistic expression, leading to the creation of breathtaking symbols carved into the earth that are not made for us to understand, but rather for something else. Number 5 takes us on a Roman getaway to the Villa of Mysteries. Cults are actually incorporated into the Roman Empire as a supplement for their varying religious customs. Always practicing in private despite their widespread acceptance, these cult meetings were only ever held in private ceremonies and temples. The secrecy of their organization's congregations unfortunately leave much of these ancient cults to be lost to time. But wall paintings of the Villa of Mysteries in Pompeii give insight as they were preserved by the volcanic ash of the 79 AD eruption. They allow us to peek into one group's practices and ideals, filling in knowledge gaps for archaeologists and historians alike. In the hall, a large continuous mural covers 3 walls as one of the most preserved ancient paintings of all times. The scene is linked with Dionysus, who appears on the central wall with his wife. Makes sense, as the villa also did include a wine production room as well. To this date, we know incredibly little of ancient cults, but from this mural depiction it seems like there's a bit of raunchy partying going on. Back over to America for number 4 as the Sago Canyon rock art. This canyon is essentially an outdoor gallery with paintings and carvings believed to have taken place a whopping 8,000 years of work. The first sign of human habitations are archaic in 6000 BC, but the subsequent tribes in the decades to come also left their symbol tree and stories on cliff walls. Researcher Polly Schafsma believes that much of these symbols correlate with ritual activities, pointing to the spirit figures often shown in snake forms and torsos, sometimes incorporating water and life-giving symbolatry. Animal figure motifs are considered evidence of spiritual tradition and lores. What really grabs attention are over 80 disturbing life-size figures. Their eyes are either hollowed out or simply not there, and many are lacking their arms and legs with triangular heads. Naturally, people jump to aliens, saying these are depictions that may be evidence of their visitation. Scholars maintain the strange beings represent ritual visions produced in trance-like states. There is no further explanation for the figures and many other story-like depictions on these walls, as researchers seem to have hit a literal stone wall in analyzing their abilities. So, the mystery continues. Number 3 in the countdown is the Swaga Game Reserve rock art. In June 2018, Polish archaeologists spotted what's now called the Machahi 4 rock shelter site, while on the game reserve located in central Tanzania. This rock art seems to belong to an ancient indigenous group, the Sandawe, who have existed for nearly 90,000 years and still remain in Southeast Africa to this day. While one of the mysteries of this piece is its age, something scientists are struggling to pinpoint due to degradation from the exposure, it's concluded that the rock art does come from the hunter-gatherer period. Scientists also determined that there are 2 paintings on the stone, and that the painters of the second intentionally respected the existing drawing, as they didn't overlay the new image on it, but rather incorporated it into the new scene. The scene depicts domestic cattle, humans, and giraffes, but most importantly is a scene centered around 3 figures featuring strange heads. These skulls have the same central dip in the profile of a buffalo head, where the 2 horns curve outward away from the head with downturned ears. Present-day descendant Sadaway clan members unfortunately cannot, or understandably will not, explain the amorphized figures, and so it's left to researchers to find some clarity in what this art could mean. And let's enter the Alabama Caves Dark Zone for number 2. A 2-mile cave that's home to many passages, sediment deposits, deep pools, and waterfalls, but also incredible art findings. This cave art was among the largest found in North America, deep in the convoluted dark zone where natural light could not reach. The ceiling of this cave is incredibly low, so when Alan Kressler came across this art for the first time in 1998, it was while he was stooped over. This low ceiling resulted in the usage of 3D technology, which was used to uncover an acre's worth of paintings that were not visible initially. There are humans adorned in native regalia, coiled snakes, swooping birds, and even a 10-foot long serpent winding its way across the expanse. Some incorporate the features of the ceiling into their designs, such as a serpent that appears to emerge from a natural fissure. To accomplish this, the artists were likely laying on their backs, So unlike with the other rock art, which is out in the open, the artists inside the chamber could not just step away and look at their work in progress from a distance to make edits, corrections, or even map placements. They simply had an idea as to what to do and moved around whilst they worked. Charred fragments of river canes suggest the artwork could have been a team effort with someone holding a torch while the artists work. Researchers estimated that the art dates between 500 AD and 1000 AD, known as the hunter-gatherers era. 89 other cave art sites have been identified in southeastern North America. The earliest is nearly 7,000 years old. All are deeply protected to avoid vandals. At number 1 are Neanderthals and the world's oldest cave creations. This is the first art discovery dated to the time of Neanderthals, said to have been created 115,000 years ago. This predates the arrival of the modern human to Europe. In 3 known caves across Spain, dozens of wall paintings were found, and in one southeastern cave, perforated seashell beads and pigments were found dating back 115,000 years. These beads are the oldest personal ornament found in the world to this date, even predating similar ones in African continents by 20 to 40,000 years. Despite the Ophi grunt representation of a Neanderthal, the more we discover and also accomplish scientifically allows us to further and further our insight, and it turns out they're very similar cognitively to humans. This could mean that the findings date back to the common ancestor of both parties, some 500,000 years ago. Some are very reluctant to believe this, as early European art didn't flourish until the major wave of modern Homo sapiens arrived on the continent about 40 to 50,000 years ago. The only way to prove that Neanderthals were artists is by finding the art in Europe made before or during that time period. No luck yet.
At number 10, Gobekli Tepe. Let's kick off this mysterious list with an archaeological site that completely rewrote the timeline of the Neolithic era. The Neolithic era was the final period of the Stone Age, where early humans began the process of domestication of animals and agriculture. For a long time, scientists believed that this era gave way to the process of holding rituals and creating monuments to their beliefs. But with the remarkable discovery of Gobekli Tepe, that entire idea was rewritten, as this mysterious site suggested that early hunter-gatherers made this temple as a ritualistic center far before these individuals decided to create settlements and begin the agricultural revolution. Based on evidence found at the site that dates 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, groups of hunter-gatherers came to this site in Urfa, Turkey some 11,500 years ago and carved out this ritualistic site out of the limestone that covered the area. It is believed that Gobekli Tepe was just a stopping point for these early humans. It was a place to meet, hold feasts, and then leave again. Soon enough though, the desire to regularly hold these gatherings prompted the early humans to domesticate plants and animals to have a more dependable food source. It is believed that these rituals is what gave way to the agricultural revolution, not the other way around. If you've seen any content regarding Gobekli Tepe, then you would know how eerie and mysterious the site looks, and because it's so old, it holds so many secrets that we have yet to uncover. At number 9, Stonehenge. Moving on to another mysterious site built by early humans, we have the famous Stonehenge. This Neolithic monument is one of the most well-known prehistoric sites. The construction of Stonehenge by the ancient humans went in 2 stages. The first monument was an early henge monument built around 5,000 years ago, and the unique stone circle built around it was built in 2500 BCE in the late Neolithic period. Now, even though this prehistoric site is very famous, we still don't have all the answers about this place. Most importantly, what it was built for. There are a number of theories that could explain the purpose of Stonehenge depending on who you ask, but the 3 main theories are that it was a sacred burial ground, a site for celestial alignment, or a place of healing. There's evidence to back these theories up, but no solid answer has been uncovered. The other mystery surrounding this is how on earth did Neolithic people manage to construct something so large with simple tools? It is theorized that the stones from the site were transported from somewhere else, about 32 kilometers away, and it was brought to the site where it was shaped using sarsen and flint hammerstones. Then the stones would be put into pre-excavated holes and hoisted up using plant fiber ropes and wooden pillars. It would have taken a tremendous amount of work, so we're still not entirely sure how this all came together, but then again, we only just found out where the stones came from, so we have to give science a little bit more time. Now, before I continue talking about these mysterious things that humans have done, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also maybe think about subscribing to the channel as well. We have so many fun videos to offer you here on Bumblebee, so smash that subscribe button and join the hive. At number 8, domesticate dogs. If you have a dog, then here's something interesting that you might not know about your relationship with them. You accidentally domesticated them. Well, not you directly, but your early ancestors. Yep, that's right. Ancient humans somehow mysteriously domesticated dogs completely by accident, or so it is said. A lot remains unclear about the domestication of dogs. What we do know is that during the last ice age, ancient humans would feed their meat scraps to dogs, and eventually they became our pals. Dogs split from their wolf ancestors between 27,000 and 40,000 years ago, and the first burial site of a dog that was found was from 14,200 years ago. Dogs are also the only animals who were domesticated by hunter-gatherers. One theory for the domestication of dogs is that they were used to help with hunting, but again, no one really knows for sure. This phenomenon sort of just happened without anybody really trying for a specific outcome. During the time of the last ice age, humans and dogs would have competed for the same meat source, but since humans aren't adapted to eating only meat, then there would have been some left over, and that would have gone out to our soon-to-be furry friends. Eventually, dogs learned that they could get food easily from humans, and so they stuck by our sides. Because all this happened by happy accident, it feels as though dogs were almost destined to be by our sides from the beginning. At number 7, Australopithecus africanus. In our last video, I told you guys about Australopithecus afarensis, but today I'm going to tell you about his relative, Australopithecus africanus. This early human lived in southern Africa between 3.3 and 2.1 million years ago. They were anatomically similar to Australopithecus afarensis, having a combination of ape-like and human characteristics. Compared to afarensis, africanus had a rounder head and smaller teeth. The remains of africanus also indicated that they were adapted for walking around bipedally, but they were also adapted for climbing as well. For a while, scientists thought that Australopithecus was a hunter after finding bones near their remains that at the time suggested that they used bones as tools and weapons, but it was later discovered that it was predators like lions, leopards, and hyenas who were responsible for leaving those bones behind. Those same predators were also responsible for hunting down Australopithecus africanus as well and making them part of their midnight snack. At number 6, Ardipithecus ramidus. Ardipithecus, aka Ardi, was a genus of early hominin who lived about 4.4 million years ago in eastern Africa. Ardi's discovery was very important in the scientific community because the evidence that was gathered from the remains that were found indicated some pretty key information regarding the evolution of primates to becoming bipedal. The foot bones discovered indicated a large toe combined with a rigid foot, and this combined with a reconstruction of Ardi's pelvic bone showed adaptations that combined tree climbing and bipedal activity. Ardi's discovery also opened a debate that contradicted the previous theory that the origin of bipedality occurred in the open savanna because Ardi's fossils indicated that she actually lived in a wooded environment. Before this, scientists believed that humans started to walk on 2 legs rather than 4 as a result of the climate becoming drier as environments became more open and grassy. At number 5, Orrorin tugenensis. Orrorin tugenensis is one of the oldest early humans in our lineage. Orrorin lived between 6.2 and 5.8 million years ago and was first discovered in 2001, giving him the nickname the Millennium Man. So far, 13 fossils have been found from 5 different specimens of Orrorin tugenensis, and so far what we know about this species is that they had teeth that were similar to modern humans, but more importantly that evidence from their upper femur suggests that they were bipedal, given the evidence of bone buildup found on other bipeds. This species was also able to climb trees, but this discovery was very exciting for scientists because this evidence showed that early humans started their journey of bipedalism so long ago. Because this species is at the base of the human family tree, it had more ape-like qualities than anything else, other than the fact that it was probably bipedal. So far, Orrorin tugenensis is the only species in the Orrorin genus. At number 4, Neanderthals platyops. Not much is known about this next species, but we do know that they had an early human companion back in the day, and that companion was Lucy, aka Australopithecus afarensis. Neanderthals platyops was a flat-faced, small-brained bipedal species that lived in eastern Africa about 3.5 million years ago during the time of Australopithecus afarensis. Neanderthals could represent a closer branch to modern humans on our evolutionary tree, but so far there isn't enough evidence to fully support that hypothesis. Was first discovered in the late 90s in, you guessed it, Kenya. And when the remains were discovered, scientists saw that this early human's fossils featured characteristics that were previously unseen with any other human fossils. Though comparing the remains of Neanderthals and Australopithecus afarensis, scientists noted that these two species had very different diets and therefore probably didn't have to fight for the same food source. So far, scientists don't exactly know how to place Neanderthals in our early human family tree because there isn't enough evidence, but some people believe that this species could be closely related to the Homo genus. At number 3, Australopithecus sediba. The discovery of Australopithecus sediba fossils in the Malpa Cave are one of the most complete early human fossil sets that have been found, and they give a lot of insight into the moment where the genus Homo evolved. This species lived between 1.97 and 1.98 million years ago, and some scientists believe that they are the bridging point between Australopithecus and Homo. Based on the size and shape of Australopithecus sediba's teeth, chest, pelvic bones, skull, and legs, scientists have been able to pinpoint where certain Homo characteristics came from and when these features appeared. Evidence found in the remains of Australopithecus sediba also show that this species adapted to a different way of upright walking. Normally, we would see humans walking with their feet pointed straight out, but based on this species' remains, Australopithecus sediba walked with their feet pointing inwards, with their weight put on the outer parts of their feet, showing that humans evolved on more than one path of walking. At number 2, Ardipithecus cadaba. Ardipithecus cadaba was a species of early human who resembled very closely to a chimpanzee but was also bipedal. This species lived in Western Africa between 5.8 and 5.2 million years ago. Not much is known about Ardipithecus cadaba because this species is only known in the fossil record. However, these scientists are so good that they were able to determine this species' bipedality based on a toe bone alone, because they could see that this species was able to push off their toes as if they were walking like you or I. One of the only other things that we know about Ardipithecus cadaba is that they had teeth that were similar to that of chimpanzees, but they were more narrow, which suggests that they were designed to eat fibrous foods. At number 1, the Denisovans. Now, this species is probably the most mysterious of them all because we know that they once existed, but there's not enough evidence in fossil data to actually give them a scientific name. Most of what we know about them comes from DNA evidence. The Denisovans were a species or subspecies of archaic human who once lived in Asia. This species is what some researchers call morphospecies, which are, quote, a group of biological organisms whose members differ from all other groups in some aspect of their form and structure. Basically, these quote-unquote humans looked nothing like us nor any of our ancient human ancestors. All we know about the Denisovans is that they are different. This species was discovered in a lab when scientists pulled 50,000-year-old DNA out of a finger bone of a fossil that was discovered in a cave in Siberia. Given their age and the location that the remains were found, researchers assumed that their DNA would match those of Neanderthals. However, their findings revealed that this DNA belonged to a group of humans who last shared an ancestor with Neanderthals approximately 765,000 years ago. Other than this information, not much else is known about this population. If more fossils are discovered, then they may be granted the scientific name of Homo denisova, but until then, they remain a mystery to the scientific community.
Number 10 is Little Lion Man. Not the painfully catchy song either, but rather a mammoth tusk carving dating back over 40,000 years, meaning it was created in the Ice Age. Standing at 12.2 inches tall, it depicts a humanoid body with the head of a lion standing square and straight backed on two legs. The sculpture was carved from ivory, which was prominent in this period. Tools were different, however, and scientists determined that this was actually carved out of simple flint scraping techniques. Using the same style of tools from the Ice Age, scientific experiments showed that this would have taken over 400 hours to complete. These are the same kind of tools found with other small sculptures in the same vicinity of the cave Lion Man was found in 1939 South Germany. These tools and animal bones found indicated people lived in those caves, but the Lion Man cave is different. Facing north, its passages see no sunlight, making it frigid, desolate, and unlivable. There's considerably less human debris found in it in any cave site found nearby, implying it was only occasionally used, perhaps as a place people would come together around a fire for meetings of importance, storytelling, rituals, who knows. Lion Man was found carefully standing in an inner chamber alongside perforated Arctic fox teeth and reindeer antlers. The story of his significance is lost to us, and what we can only speculate the Lion Man is perhaps maybe a creation story, a hero, a deity, we'll never know. Number 9 is the Amazon Ice Age canvas. It's 8 miles long and climbs upwards along the mountainside deep in the Colombian Amazon. This canvas depicts mastodons, the giant sloth, and many other beasts that didn't live to see a modern era, painted on inexplicably by hand all the way up. It's truly a sight to behold. It's believed that these paintings were the earliest peoples of western Amazonia towards the end of the last ice age, about 12,600 years ago. At the base of the canvas are 3 rock shelters. When excavated, they revealed that they may be some of the earliest human-occupied sites in the entire Amazon, meaning this painting offers us insight into early hunter-gatherers of the region. Because Amazon used to be a drastically different environment, we already know that there are many animals that we never got to see emerge from these lands, but having them documented for us by those who did see them, well, it's incredible. Identified painted creatures include deer, alligators, bats, monkeys, and horses. We still don't know how they managed to climb as high as they did to paint when Amazonians settled, their impact on land, or even how long these Amazonians were here. But the Last Journey project aims to answer these questions for us as they continue to analyze. Number 8 is the Agawa Rock and the little-known lore of the giant lynx. J.E.H. MacDonald of the Group of 7 spoke of Agawa Canyon as the original site of the Garden of Eden for its beauty and grandeur. Considered the most important and mysterious art piece of Canada, the granite face of a 15-story high cliff depicts the terrifying beast that reportedly tormented the Ojibwe and Anishinaabe people for hundreds of thousands of years. It's known as the Great Lynx, as its true name is one that should never be spoken out loud. Red ochre draws up feline paws and legs. The dragon-like body is adorned with sharp spines along its back and tail, and while it may not have eyes in this depiction, make no mistake that this creature looks back down on you. There are over 100 other images at Agawa Rock, a sacred lakeside site located in Lake Superior Provincial Park, possibly over a millennia old. Nobody knows for sure what they mean and why they were placed there, seeing as visiting the artwork requires venturing out onto a rocky ledge where a sign warns that death and injury have occurred when highly unpredictable waves have washed visitors off the rock ledge while viewing the pictographs. Eli, a Bashawana First Nations elder and knowledge keeper whose ancestors made these paintings, recommend observing the Anishinaabe custom of offering tobacco and asking for permission from spirits who watch over the area to view the pictographs, should you visit them. After all, the Great Lynx is a sinister spirit of swift waves and troubled waters, and those who show no respect may be swept to their ultimate demise.
At number 8, ancient fashion. In 2021, archaeologists made a discovery that gives us an idea of how ancient humans made clothing. It was always assumed that ancient humans used animal furs for clothing, but up until recently, not much was known about their fashion. With this newest find, scientists were able to figure out how clothing was made all those thousands of years ago. 62 bone tools were found in Morocco, and it's believed that they were used to process and smooth animal skins. This find may be the earliest evidence for clothing in the archaeological records. The bone tools that were found are believed to be between 90,000 and 120,000 years old and were used to work leather. What's fascinating about this find is the fact that similar bone tools are still used by leather workers even to this day, so it's cool to know that our ways haven't changed much over the years. At number 7, Gobekli Tepe. The Neolithic era was the final period of the Stone Age where early humans began the process of domestication of animals and agriculture. For a long time, scientists believed that this era gave way to the process of holding rituals and creating monuments to their beliefs. But with the remarkable discovery of Gobekli Tepe, that entire idea was rewritten, as this mysterious site suggested that early hunter-gatherers made this temple as a ritualistic center far before these individuals decided to create settlements and begin the agricultural revolution. Based on evidence found at this site that dates 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, groups of hunter-gatherers came to this site in Urfa, Turkey some 11,500 years ago, and carved out this ritualistic site out of the limestone that covered the area. It is believed that Gobekli Tepe was just a stopping point for these early humans. It was a place to meet, hold feasts, and then leave again. Soon enough though, the desire to regularly hold these gatherings prompted the early humans to domesticate plants and animals to have a more dependable food source. So with this in mind, it is believed that these rituals are what gave way to the agricultural revolution, not the other way around. If you've seen any content regarding Gobekli Tepe, then you would know how eerie and mysterious the site looks, and because it's so old, it holds so many secrets that we have yet to uncover. At number 6, cave paintings. I think that out of all the things left behind by our ancient ancestors, cave paintings are one of the most bizarre. So many archaic art pieces have been found by scientists over the years, from statues to ceremonial pieces, but cave paintings are by far the most fascinating, at least in my opinion. Much like modern art, it is all up to interpretation, especially since the artists who created these cave masterpieces are long gone. Some of the most mysterious cave paintings are those that depict some kind of alien life forms. Yep, I said aliens. Even back in the days of the early humans, Homo sapiens have been looking to the stars or even having their own encounters with extraterrestrials. One such depiction of alien life comes from the Wandjina cave paintings. These eerie-looking paintings depict these sky beings, as they were called. These beings are depicted with white faces devoid of a mouth, large black eyes, and a head surrounded by a halo or some kind of helmet. According to legend, the Wandjina were sky people or spirits from the sky who descended from the Milky Way and created Earth and all of its inhabitants. The Wandjina realized how big a task their creation was, and so they sent for more of their people and spent their time creating, teaching, and being gods to the people of Earth. Eventually they left, either descending into the water or returning back into the stars. This extraterrestrial discovery has to be one of the most bizarre finds from our ancient ancestors. At number 5, mass extinction. This one might be a little sad because we're going to talk about how scientists determined just how much destructions humans caused in the early days of humanity. While humans were evolving in Africa, the rest of the world's creatures were thriving for the most part. In many parts of the world untouched by human influence, there were megafauna. These megafauna were able to live and thrive for thousands of years, at least until Homo sapiens came along and ruined everything. As we started to traverse the globe, creating settlements and beginning the story of humanity, we also, in the process, killed off most of this megafauna, causing a mass extinction of these creatures. This extinction event, which scientists have called the holocene extinction, is still ongoing. Most of the largest animals to have ever roamed the earth were wiped out around 80,000 years ago and went completely extinct by 10,000 years ago. Some scientists want to blame this on climate change, however, in a lot of places, the timing of the first human settlements and the extinction of certain animals line up too precisely to completely excuse us from having caused damage to Earth's megafauna. At number 4, baby burial. Though it can be really sad, finding ancient burial sites can give researchers a lot of information about the culture of certain groups of ancient people. At a 34,000-year-old hunter-gatherer burial site near Moscow, archaeologists discovered the remains of 2 adolescent boys, and what they found alongside the remains was surprising. These 2 boys, who looked to have had some kind of disability, were buried like royalty. They were buried together, along with 10,000 mammoth beads, more than 20 armbands, around 300 pierced fox teeth, 16 ivory mammoth spears, carvings, antlers, and human fibula laid across the chest of each child. Compared to the other adult burial sites, this one was quite lavish, but the reason as to why these 2 were buried with so much care is unknown. It is one of those mysteries from our history that remains unsolved, making it a bit of a bizarre find. At number 3, old settlement. In an area of Kenya called Panga ya Saidi, archaeologists discovered a network of caves that are believed to have housed hundreds of people. This cave area houses more than 1,000 square feet of space, and it is believed that an ancient tribe used to call this place home. Inside this cave, archaeologists also discovered a collection of various stone tools that date back around 67,000 years. This was the ideal living arrangement for the ancient people who used to live there because the tropical climate of the area would have been good for survival, whereas other areas of Africa would have experienced drought. This discovery just helped further our understanding of how the early humans lived. At number 2, Homo floresiensis. Here's a really interesting species of human that has recently been discovered. Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit, were ancient hominids who lived in Indonesia around 100,000 to 50,000 years ago, and as you could probably guess by its nickname, these ancient humans were very small. It is estimated that they only stood about 3'6" on average and weighed just over 60 pounds. Homo floresiensis also had tiny brains, large teeth, shrugged forward shoulders, had no chins, and had receding foreheads. So they definitely did not look like the rest of us humans. So far, the remains of these humans have only been found on the island of Flores, Indonesia, and because of that, scientists believe that this species of human was subjected to island dwarfism, an evolutionary process that occurs from long-term isolation on an island with limited food. This island also has pygmy elephants, who are also extinct. What's pretty cool though is that scientists are currently exploring new evidence that might suggest that Homo floresiensis might have already been small before arriving to the island. And finally, at number 1, ancient music. When you think about ancient humans, you might not associate them with art or music as they were quite primitive, but it turns out that some of our human ancestors were quite musically inclined. Years back, scientists discovered the first evidence of musical instruments in Germany and Slovakia. In 2008, archaeologists in Germany found flutes made from mammoth ivory that date back around 40,000 years ago, and just a few years before that, in 1995 in Slovakia, researchers found other flutes made from the thigh bones of cave bears, which dated back around 60,000 years. These Slovakian flutes were the oldest musical instruments ever found, and they were made by Neanderthals. This opened up a whole new world of discovery for scientists, as this find suggested that these ancient people were able to comprehend concepts like rhythm, tempo, and melody. This also suggested that Neanderthals were much more intelligent and sophisticated than we thought. Kicking things off for us here at number 10, we have the human-pig hybrid. This chimera really does exist, and it was created by scientists in the United States. Researchers in the US were able to successfully create the first human-pig hybrid embryo. This was done by growing human cells inside of an early stage pig embryo, making them an interspecies chimera. There were more than 150 successfully created chimeras who had the precursors of organs like the heart and liver, which contain human DNA. This whole experiment was done as a sort of proof of concept to prove that human-pig hybrids are possible. This is all done so that in the future there can be a viable way of growing organs in labs to be used for transplant purposes. When speaking out about this insane experiment, one of the researchers on this project said, quote, "Our findings may offer hope for advancing science and medicine by providing an unprecedented ability to study early embryo development and organ formation, as well as a potential new avenue for medical therapies. We have shown that a precisely targeted technology can allow organisms from one species to produce a specific organ composed of cells from another species." End quote. Do you think that this could be the real future of medicine, or are we pushing the boundaries of medical science too far? Well, tell me about it down in the comments. At number 9, human monkey. On the topic of other human hybrid embryos, we have another one that was recently created in a lab that is a chimera of a human and a monkey. Much like the human-pig hybrid that I just talked about, this human-monkey experiment was also designed as part of the scientists' organ transplant research. An international team of researchers added human stem cells to monkey embryos to create this hybrid. This is the first time anything like this has been successful. In the past, people have tried to make what they call humanzees, which are human-monkey hybrids, but none of those experiments were actually successful. The researchers on this project published their findings and assured people that they were not trying to create full-grown chimeras. It was again just a proof of concept. After 20 days of observation of these embryos, all samples were destroyed, so don't worry, mutant King Kongs are not on the horizon. Now before I carry on with the video, I want to first take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also consider subscribing to the channel as well. We have a lot of fun over here on Bumblebee, so smash the subscribe button and join the hive. At number 8, mermaid. Next up, we're talking about mermaids. For years, people have been fascinated by the idea of mermaids. Half fish, half human creatures who live in the water and tempt sailors out in the open sea. When you think about these creatures, the first thing that might pop into your head could be the Disney princess Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Well, what if I told you that Ariel could actually be real? Now, of course, there's no scientific proof that mermaids really do exist, because if there were, we would have seen them in a museum by now, but there is still a chance that they could be out there. These magical aquatic half-humans first appeared in our beliefs 30,000 years ago when they were depicted in cave paintings. Maybe the early humans who created those paintings actually encountered them. We just don't know. If they exist, there is a possibility that they could have gone extinct, or maybe they live in a remote place in our world's oceans that we have yet to explore. Remember, 90% of the world's oceans haven't been explored yet, so you really don't know what's lurking in the depths of the water. These cave paintings that depict mermaids though have me wondering if our early ancestors were actually onto something or not. Only time will tell.
In our number 7 spot today, we have Orrorin tugenensis, also referred to as the Millennium Man, which is way easier for me to pronounce. This species is another one of the earliest on the human family tree, and they are said to have lived about 6 million years ago. This species was discovered in 2001 by a team of French paleontologists who were searching in the Tungen Hills region of central Kenya. Here they found over a dozen fossils that belonged to the early humans of this time period. The people of this species are said to have been about the size of a chimpanzee, and they had small teeth with thick enamel, not unlike us modern humans. While any discovery of early human remains is fascinating and super important, it is said that the most important fossil from this species is that of an upper femur, which shows evidence that this species was bipedal. They likely still climbed trees and that sort of thing, but they also likely walked upright. In our number 6 spot today, we have Australopithecus afarensis. I had actually never learned of this species before researching for this video, but it turns out that this was one of the longest lived and best known early human species, as researchers have been able to uncover the remains of more than 300 individuals. It is said that this species was first seen somewhere between 3.85 and 2.95 million years ago, and that they survived for an impressive 900,000 years, which is 4 times longer than we as Homo sapiens have been around. More similar to chimpanzees than modern humans, the children of this species grew quite rapidly after birth, and they reached adulthood faster than we do, which means that they likely had less time for parental guidance and socialization. This species had both human and ape-like characteristics. They had more ape-like face proportions and a brain case for a brain, quote, the size of a modern human brain. They had long, strong arms and curved fingers, which shows that they must have climbed trees. This ability to live both on the ground and in trees likely is what helped them to survive for almost 1 million years through climate and environmental changes. In our number 5 spot today, we have Homo antecessor. The discovery of this species starts out at a huge archaeological site in Spain called Gran Dolina Cave. This cave is rich with history, but as relates to this list, at this site there has been found the remains of a hominin group called Homo antecessor. This discovery came in 1997, and this species is often described as having a mix of modern and primitive traits. It is thought that there were similarities with this species between both other species, Neanderthals and Denisovans, which shows that they all must have shared some common ancestor. In our number 4 spot today, we have Ardipithecus cadaba. This is a species that had its discovery in 1997, but when the paleontologist who first found a piece of lower jaw lying on the ground, he didn't think that he had just discovered a new species. After 10 more specimens were found, it was safe to say that a new early human ancestor had been identified. The remains, which included this jaw, as well as hand and foot bones, partial arm bones, and a collarbone, were dated back to about 5.6 to 5.8 million years ago. The toe bones showed us that this species walked on 2 feet, and the fossils of other animals found in the area where these early human remains were found showed that they lived in a mix of woodlands and grasslands. Because we have jaw remains, we have been able to conclude that they likely ate a variety of fibrous foods. Their back teeth were larger than a chimpanzee's, but their front teeth were much more narrow. In our number 3 spot today, we have Kenyanthropus platyops. This is one of the more mysterious early human species, as there is still so much that we don't know about them. What we do know is that they lived in Kenya about 3.5 million years ago, and that they lived during the same time as the Australopithecus afarensis that we talked about earlier. Despite them living at the same time, however, this species had much smaller molars, which researchers believe reflects a different diet. This means that these two species likely did not compete for food. There are some people who believe that us as Homo sapiens are related to this species because of their facial features that are more similar to modern humans compared to the faces of some of the other human species that existed at the time. Not everyone in the scientific community is convinced yet, but hopefully once more specimens and fossils are found, we will be able to get a really solid answer. This species remains the only one in their genus, with their name translating to flat-faced from Kenya. In our number 2 spot today, we have Homo naledi, also called the Star Man. This species certainly was an interesting one, as they had quite an unusual mix of features. It is said that parts of their skeletons would be indistinguishable from modern humans, but that there were other parts that seemed almost ape-like. This species had a brain that was only slightly larger than a chimpanzee, but they were still capable of sophisticated and more modern human-like behavior. No one is exactly sure when these guys existed, existed or when exactly they went extinct, and it isn't quite clear where they sit in the evolutionary tree, but some experts believe that they may have lived at the same time of Homo habilis that we talked about earlier. They believe that they probably went extinct more than 1 million years ago after being outcompeted by later species like Homo erectus. There are others who don't agree with this, however, and who believe that this species lived much more recently, but that then begs the question as to how humans who looked so primitive could have survived up until so recently. In our number 1 spot today we have Homo luzonensis. An island-dwelling population, this species was discovered on the island of Luzon in the Philippines, and it is thought that they lived here around 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. This species was discovered through just 13 bones from teeth, fingers, toes, and a femur that were found on the island. These remains belonged to 3 different individuals, but they gave us insanely valuable insight into this previously unknown species. In 2019, it was determined that these bones were different enough from the other known past human species that they were then classified into their own new species category. It is crazy to think that it's still so recently that we're discovering brand new species that are really important to the history of humans and how we got here today. It is said that the toe and finger bones of this species are quite interesting as they are slightly curved, which is a feature that is shared by living species of tree-dwelling primates. It is thought that this may suggest that for this species, living in trees might have still been a part of their everyday lifestyle. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot we have Paranthropus tugenensis. This species is one of the oldest known in the human family tree. We're starting right at the beginning. This species is said to have lived about 6 to 7 million years ago in West Central Africa. It is thought that they had the ability to walk upright, and this may have helped them diversify the habitats that they could live in. Although we only have cranial remains of this species, studies have shown that they likely had a mix of ape-like and human-like features. The ape-like features include a small brain, a sloping face, really prominent brow ridges, and an elongated skull. In terms of human-like features, it is said that they had smaller canine teeth, a shorter middle part of their face, and a spinal cord opening underneath the skull, which likely helped them to walk on 2 feet. It wasn't until 2001 when the remains of this species were discovered, making it quite a recent discovery. With this discovery came the knowledge that the early humans were a bit more widespread at this time than we had originally believed. In our number 9 spot today we have Australopithecus anamensis. Back in 1965, a research team led by Brian Patterson found a single arm bone of an early human at a site which was located in northern Kenya. This was an amazing find, but without additional human fossils, they were unable to identify exactly which species it belonged to. Skip to 1994 and another research team at the same site were able to find numerous teeth and bone fragments, and through these additional samples, they were able to determine that these fossils were of a very, very primitive hominin, and they were able to name a new species. This species had a combination of traits that can be found in both apes as well as humans. The upper end of the tibia or the shin bone shows us signs that it was likely that this species was bipedal. Because of the long forearms and certain features that were found in the wrist bones, it is also suggested that this species likely climbed trees as well. Based on their jaws and teeth, we think that they were likely plant eaters in general and that their diet mostly consisted of fruits and nuts. In our number 8 spot today we have Homo habilis. This name is said to translate into handy man, and it refers to a species of humans that evolved in Africa sometime prior to 2 million years ago, so clearly quite some time ago. It is believed that Homo habilis went extinct about 1.5 million years ago. By the middle of the 20th century, it was starting to be accepted that humans first evolved in Africa from a group of early hominins known as Australopiths. Back in 1960, however, a research team in Tanzania found fossils that would sort of confirm this in a way. This fossil was one that sort of fell into a gap between Australopiths and humans as we know them now. It was the discovery of Homo habilis, the first true human species to evolve. From what has been found, which is mostly fragmentary fossils, it has been determined that H. habilis seemed to have a brain that was significantly larger than Australopiths and more similar to later human species. It is believed that H. habilis behaved in a human-like way. They made stone tools, which at the time was thought to be different than their previous ancestors. This is exactly part of the reason why they were named handyman, but at this point in time we now know that Australopiths also made tools, but the name of H. habilis still stands, and they are very important in the course of our evolution.
At number 7, Homo floresiensis. Here's a really interesting species of human that might not have made it into your textbooks. Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit, lived in Indonesia about 100,000 to 50,000 years ago. And as you could probably guess by its nickname, these ancient humans were very, very small. It is estimated that they only stood about 3'6" on average and weighed just over 60 pounds. Homo floresiensis also had tiny brains, large teeth, shrugged forward shoulders, had no chins, and receding foreheads. So they definitely didn't look like the rest of us humans. So far, the remains of these humans have only been found on the island of Flores, Indonesia, and because of that, scientists believe that this species of human was subjected to island dwarfism, an evolutionary process that occurs from long-term isolation on an island with limited food. This island also had pygmy elephants, who are also extinct, unfortunately. I would have liked to have one as a pet. Cool. What's pretty cool though is that scientists are currently exploring new evidence that might suggest that Homo floresiensis might have already been small before even arriving to the island. At number 6, Sahelanthropus tugenensis. Now we're going to throw it back super far with this next human species who lived between 7 and 6 million years ago. This early human species is one of the oldest known species on the human family tree, and they lived in West Central Africa. It is believed that walking upright helped the species survive living in diverse habitats like grasslands and forests. This species was essentially the bridging point of evolution from ape to human. Though they still possessed ape-like qualities like a small brain, sloping face, very prominent brow ridges, and elongated skull, they also had human-like qualities such as small canine teeth, a short middle part of the face, and a spinal cord opening underneath the skull instead of towards the back as seen in non-bipedal apes. Not much else is known about this species due to lack of fossils, but it's still cool to be able to see the moment in time where we went from apes to humans. At number 5, Australopithecus afarensis. Australopithecus afarensis is one of the longest living early human species out there. Also referred to as Lucy's species, these early humans lived between 3.85 and 2.95 million years ago, and over 300 specimens have been collected so far. Lucy's species lived for approximately 900,000 years, which is over 4 times longer than our own species. What's pretty cool about these ancient humans is that similarly to chimpanzees, afarensis young grew to maturity much faster than modern humans, leaving parental units less time for guidance and parental socialization. Imagine if your adult life began before the age of 18. I could never. I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that I'm an adult now, and I'm 22. Like, give me more time, please. I'm not ready. Australopithecus afarensis had ape and human-like qualities. For the most part, they were pretty apey. Their faces were more so like an ape, they had long arms with curved fingers for climbing trees, but they also walked upright and had small canine teeth like every other early human species. These guys also survived off a mostly fruit diet, but sometimes they ate the odd lizard or two. Because they had curved fingers, scientists want to know if Lucy's species walked around most of the time or if they still spent their time in trees, but that's just one of the many unanswered questions about this early human. At number 4, Homo erectus. Moving right along, we have Homo erectus. This early human species was the first to possess more modern human-like features and body proportions. Before Homo erectus, early human species had short legs and long arms, but with this one, they were shown to have long legs and short arms like us. This suggests that they were more adapted to living life on the ground with the ability to walk or even run longer distances. Now with their newly adapted ability to travel longer distances on foot, combined with their larger brains, this meant that they needed more fuel to survive. It's believed that they ate more protein that could be easily digested, and with their shorter digestive tract, it took them less time for those nutrients to be absorbed. Scientists also discovered the earliest evidence of hearths during the time of Homo erectus, which suggests that these early humans spent time around a fire, cooking their food, and socializing with their group. Some believe that Homo erectus may have been the direct ancestor to Homo sapiens, but there's not enough evidence to come to this conclusion just yet. At number 3, Homo naledi. Homo naledi is the most recently discovered early human species, so not much is known about them yet. What we do know is that these early humans lived between 335,000 and 236,000 years ago. The evolutionary tree of the Homo genus is very messy already, so placing this new species on that timeline is still pretty tricky. Based on specific findings from this species, it looks like Homo naledi possesses some qualities that are more Australopithecus-like due to the size of their pelvises and shoulders, and others that are more Homo because of the size of their hands, feet, and brains. There's much more research that needs to be done on this species, but it might answer a lot of questions for scientists. At number 2, Homo neanderthalensis. Though you may have heard of Homo neanderthalensis, or the Neanderthal, how much do you really know about these early humans? The Neanderthals are our closest extinct human relative. Though they are known for their signature face shapes with their large faces, angled cheekbones, and large noses, they're also some of the most interesting early humans because evidence has been found that paints a picture of their behaviors and rituals. Neanderthals created and used a wide array of tools. They controlled fire, lived in shelters, made and wore clothing, they were good at hunting, and they even made ornamental or symbolic items, which really wasn't a thing before them. Another interesting fact about Neanderthals is that these early humans practiced burial rites. There's been evidence to show that these early humans would deliberately bury their dead and even mark their burial sites with offerings like flowers. No other species up until that point had ever done anything like this, so I think that's pretty cool. And finally, at number 1, Homo sapiens. Now you're probably saying to yourself, Bree, these humans are not extinct and we certainly know that they exist. And yes, I know that. However, how much do you really know about your own species? And did you know that we are currently going extinct? Yeah, let's start with the facts though. We, Homo sapiens, popped up on this earth in Africa about 300,000 years ago, and we've been here ever since. Go us, I think. Debatable. What made us different from other humans who were lurking about was our ability to adapt. See, when times got rough for other early humans, most of them weren't able to adapt to their environment and they soon died off, whether from the elements or from being killed. On top of that, we were skilled with our weapons and tools. We were able to make smaller, more complex, refined tools, including composite stone tools, fish hooks and harpoons, bows and arrows, spear throwers, and sewing needles. Soon, we were able to go from hunting and gathering to farming, changing the earth to fit our needs rather than hunt for whatever we could. We were able to go off and travel the world, settling in every continent, developing cultures, cities, empires, and accidentally domesticating dogs. 'Cause yeah, we kinda did that. At number 10, Homo heidelbergensis. Let's kick off this list by talking about one extinct species that scientists think is the species that caused the evolutionary separation between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. This is exciting stuff. Homo heidelbergensis was one of our common ancestors who lived between 700,000 and 200,000 years ago. I say that backwards because lineage. You get it. They were believed to have lived in Europe and Asia. These early humans were believed to have been our first ancestors to live in colder climates due to their physical makeup. Homo heidelbergensis were short and had wide bodies, which scientists think was adapted in order to conserve heat since they lived in colder climates. It's also hypothesized that these ancient humans were the first to routinely hunt large animals like wild deer, horses, elephants, hippos, and rhinos, build shelters, and create dwellings out of wood and rock. They were innovators who had definite control over fires and wooden tools. Appearance-wise, they had a large brow bridge, larger brain case, and a flatter face. Evidence suggests that they worked in groups, which they definitely would have needed to in order to hunt large prey, since at the time, humans were relatively low on the food chain, unlike today, where modern humans stand as the top predator. Homo heidelbergensis marked a turning point in human evolution, and I call that positive growth. At number 9, Homo rudolfensis. Now let's throw it back to one of the older extinct human species on this list. Homo rudolfensis dwelled in eastern Africa between 1.9 and 1.8 million years ago, and their fossils have been found in areas like northern Kenya, northern Tanzania, and Malawi. Homo rudolfensis was one of many human species living around the same time and area. Other species from that time include Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Paranthropus boisei, whom we will cover in a little bit. When Homo rudolfensis remains were uncovered, it was originally thought that they were from Homo habilis because of a few distinct differences like its larger brain case, longer face, larger molar and premolar teeth, but scientists couldn't confidently classify this early human as habilis. The size of rudolfensis' teeth also raised the question of whether or not this species was just an Australopithecus with a larger brain, but not enough evidence has been found to support that. Now, before we carry on learning about our ancient extinct relatives, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also maybe consider subscribing to the channel and join the Bumblebee family. At number 8, Homo habilis. Homo habilis, nicknamed Handyman, lived in eastern and southern Africa between 2.4 million and 1.4 million years ago. This species of human was one of the earliest members of the genus Homo because its features were slightly smaller than others of the older hominin species, but habilis still had ape-like features such as long arms and a moderately prognathic face, which basically means that their lower jaw was still protruding a bit like other apes. This species was given the nickname Handyman because it's believed that they were the first makers of stone tools thanks to their larger brains. Other than their use of stone tools, Homo habilis was also able to survive and adapt so long thanks to their ability to change their diet seasonally. Evidence shown in tooth studies tells us that because their tooth enamel was still strong like Australopithecus, they were still good for lots of chewing, therefore they were able to break down a larger array of foods, including tougher foods. Homo habilis was also believed to have been the ancestor of Homo erectus, but since scientists have found evidence suggesting that they actually coexisted in eastern Africa, that put a hole, so to speak, in the evolutionary timeline, so now they don't know who fits where. At number 7, human chimeras. Here's another human hybrid that actually really does exist, and it's not even that hard to find either. Human chimeras are human hybrids with two different sets of human DNA. How does that happen, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. There are a few ways that you can become a human chimera. One way is from getting a bone marrow transplant. When you receive a donor's bone marrow, those cells continue making that person's DNA, and since it's in your body, you start to receive a mix of DNA and can become a chimera that way. Another way that it's done is in utero. If someone is pregnant with twins and one twin passes away in the early stages of pregnancy, there is a chance that the surviving fetus can absorb the cells from its sibling and retain both their own DNA and the DNA of their sibling as well. One more way that chimerism can happen in pregnancy is when a parent absorbs some of their child's DNA. If some of the fetal cells migrate outside of the uterus, the parent can retain that DNA. Some people call this a pregnancy souvenir, but this phenomenon is known scientifically as microchimerism, and this can actually be pretty common. It's just that most people don't know that it's happened to them. Fascinating stuff. At number 6, human mouse. In another instance of human hybrids in lab testing, we have the human-mouse hybrid. In this experiment done by researchers at the University of Buffalo and the Roswell Park Cancer Institution, they were successfully able to create a human-mouse chimera that had 4% human DNA, which is the highest result that this kind of experiment has seen so far. Researchers injected human stem cells into a mouse embryo and monitored its growth. Scientists were able to find evidence of human cells in the developing liver, brain, eyes, heart, blood, and bone marrow. We're seeing more and more of these kinds of experiments being run all over the world, and though it is for medical research, these experiments are also creating a lot of controversy with people saying that researchers are playing God and going way too far. It only takes one wrong move to create some kind of catastrophe, so let's hope that we don't get some kind of real-life sci-fi film out of this. At number 5, Dragon Man. Now this one might not be a true hybrid, but it is still fascinating, and just the name alone made me want to put it on this list, so here you go. Now, even though the name might suggest it, no, this is not a half-man, half-dragon, sorry. But it is the newest member of the Homo genus. This past summer, scientists discovered the skull of a new human species that they've named Homo longi. Longi being the Chinese name for dragon, and dragon being a reference to the location that these remains were found, since they were discovered in the Dragon River region in northeast China. The skull of the Dragon Man dates back 146,000 years, and scientists believe that this new species belongs to another sister group of Homo sapiens, so they're even more closely related to us than Neanderthals. What stunned researchers the most about this incredible find was the size of this being's skull, because it's pretty big for a hominid from this time. This find opened a new avenue of discoveries for scientists, so that's pretty exciting news for anyone who takes an interest in this sort of thing. I mean, with further research, who knows what we could learn from this find? Maybe Homo longi really is a human-dragon hybrid. Number 4, real fawn. This next human hybrid could be a hoax, but maybe it isn't. You just never know. Back in 2016, a farmer made a shocking discovery when one of his goats gave birth. He was expecting the usual baby goat, because why else wouldn't you expect that? But instead what he got seemed to have been some kind of mythical creature resembling a faun. For those who don't know, a faun is a creature from Roman mythology that is half human, half goat. The farmer said that when this baby goat was born, it looked like it had facial features resembling a human baby, with a small face, nose, and short limbs. The farmer told local news sources that the baby didn't survive long after it was born, and the body was later turned over to veterinary services because what the heck do you do with something that looks like it's straight out of Roman mythology? To this day, no one quite knows what it was, but it could very well have been a human-goat hybrid. At number 3, ancient human hybrid. Back in our talk about ancient humans, we have a pretty cool find that suggests that there were once Denisovan-Neanderthal hybrids. We know that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred, but now with the discovery of the Denisovans, we know that both Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interbred with them as well. We knew that Homo sapiens and Denisovans mated because Denisovan DNA has been found in a percentage of the population of native Australians. But now, after finding new bone fragments, scientists believe that Neanderthals and Denisovans created offspring as well. In their findings, researchers looked to extract DNA from bone fragments found at an archaeological site, and the results came back showing that whoever this individual was half Neanderthal, half Denisovan. Pretty neat, right? An ancient human hybrid ready to teach us more about our ancient human relatives. At number 2, human cows. Now this one is almost too bizarre to even believe. Guys, we have human cows. Well, we kind of have human cows. Back in 2009, scientists in Russia and Belarus genetically modified cows and goats to produce human breast milk. Yes, you heard that correctly. That sweet teat juice tastes just like mama used to make when you get it from these cows and goats. Now unfortunately, these scientists weren't able to make the milk 100% human, but they got pretty close, creating 60% human milk instead. Human milk just sounds way too weird. The goal of this whole experiment was to be able to mass produce human breast milk and have it on shelves in grocery stores for people to pick up for their families. I'm not really sure how successful they were at getting breast milk in the supermarket, but if they didn't, they at least have one thing going for them. Apparently, human breast milk makes delicious cheese, so do with that information what you will. And finally, at number 1, Minotaur. If you're at all familiar with Greek mythology, then you may know about the story of the Minotaur. Basically, it's about a half-man, half-bull creature who was locked away in a maze. Everyone thought that this was just a story, but after researchers found a site that matches the story of the Minotaur, some think that this beast could actually be real. The story of the Minotaur took place in Crete, and because this is a real place, archaeologists began their excavation and research in this area and came up with some theories for this site in relation to the Greek legend. One theory is that the capital city from this area is so big and complex that this could have been the quote-unquote maze from the story. There is also a theory that because Crete has so many cave systems, this could also have been interpreted as the maze as well. Because researchers are still trying to piece this story together with the real-life evidence that they've been given, solid answers haven't yet been given, but if they really think that they've started to crack the case on the story of the Minotaur, and since they believe that this maze is real, it could be that this human bull hybrid could also be real. So maybe, but we might never know.